Hey everybody, this is Costa of Costa 10-Minute Oil Change. We're doing a brief video on the anatomy of an oil filter in honor of the return of #Filter Friday, where we cut open filters that I pull from my stores and take a look at the components of them and do a little review on them. So without further ado, let's get into the video on what makes up an oil filter. So in honor of getting back into #Filter Friday, I wanted to go into the anatomy of an oil filter. This is kind of like a oil filter 101 video, just to talk about the components of an oil filter, talk about the manufacturers, talk about the brands, how sometimes the brands use the same manufacturer, and what all the components of an oil filter are, and what makes a good one versus a poor one. So today what I have here is a Motorcraft filter. This is what we're going to use. I already had it cut open, so I'm going to use this Motorcraft filter. I have my oil filter cutter, which allows me to cut into the oil filter and take it apart and look at the components. This is by Longacre Racing Products. I'm going to have a link to the product in the description. I think you can get it on Amazon. And without any further ado, we can get into the video. So this Motorcraft is an FL910S. It's off of I believe a 2000. We pulled it off a 2006 Ford Escape at our Harrisburg location, and I brought it home with me to cut open. Motorcraft is the brand most associated with Ford. When we do #Filter Friday or just Filter Friday, I'm going to go into the history of the product, the brand, a little bit before I dive into the filter. But for the purposes of the anatomy of an oil filter video, we're just going to talk about the filter right now. So the first component of the oil filter, if you start from the bottom to the top, is going to be the gasket. The gasket's made of a rubber substance. It can be a multitude of different types of material. In 2018, the manufacturers should all be up to a standard where the gasket stays on. The gasket is still on this filter. Now, anybody that does oil changes frequently knows that a double gasket is the easiest way to blow an engine. It's the easiest mistake to make when doing an oil change. Even an easier mistake to make than forgetting to tighten the drain plug, because even with a loose drain plug, for the most part, you can catch it before any real damage is done. With a double gasket, if you're driving down the road and that gasket has another gasket on it and it's not caught at the time, if you don't pressure test it when you do the oil change and the oil doesn't spray everywhere until you get up to 3,000 RPM, that can be highly harmful to your engine. So this is a steel base plate on this Motorcraft filter. We move into the filter. Usually there is a drain back valve. This filter has a drain back valve. It's some kind of silicone based. It's in good shape. This is the original Fomoco Ford Motor Company anti-drain back valve. Now you get into the actual filter. Sometimes the base plates, the end caps actually come off of the filter. On this Motorcraft filter, the end caps are actually sealed to the filter, so we can't get to the center tube, which is fine. But this is actually a very high quality setup for this filter. The pleats are in really good shape. Now, I believe Motorcraft does outsource its filters to a third party to manufacture them and then just gives them the OEM specs. And that's common in the filter industry. Now, Ford is going to put their logo on it, but it's not being made by Ford employees. The pleats in this are in great shape. This filter looks like it could continue to clean oil pretty well. These filters are designed to hold up to 10 grams of contaminants, and is good with both regular synthetic blend and full synthetic oil. I'm not seeing anywhere in the pleating at all. It's definitely a paper-based pleating. It's not a synthetic-based filter, so I would say that the filters shouldn't be gone for more than the 5,000 miles before it stops effectively cleaning the oil. The end cap has a bypass valve in it. That's common for this FL910S filter. And that's common in a lot of the other filters as well. They're not always in an oil filter, but they can be a part of the end cap. The steel housing on this is pretty standard. It's got some pleats to make easier for taking the filter off. Not all oil filters are going to have these indentations in the filter to make it easier, but this one does. Motorcraft does not have a cross-reference on here, so if you did need to find the Fram version or the Mobile One version or whatever brand you're trying to get, it won't be on here. You will have to use an outside guide. This filter is in pretty good shape. I didn't get the sticker off of the car we took it from, so I don't know how many miles they drove, but it seems like it has just the normal wear and tear. And the Ford Motorcraft filter is obviously a quality enough filter for it to roll off the manufacturer's lot with it in it. So that being said, that is the anatomy of the oil filter. This is the main components of what makes up an oil filter, and we will get into the differences between the different brands and manufacturers in the next video. If you like my videos, please feel free to subscribe. I'll be putting out videos about the oil change business, and hey buddy, how you doing? And and every Friday we will be doing reviews of the oil filters. I got stuff on my hands. Hey guys, it's Costa Thanasis of Costa Oil 10-Minute Oil Change, and we're doing our second episode of Filter Friday. Today the filters we're going to be cutting open and reviewing are a Motorcraft 910S, a Mobile One, M1-102, and a Pennzoil PZ27. Now these three filters are interchangeable. They came from three different cars. The Mobile One filter is a brand new filter. So without further ado, let's go ahead and cut in. So to cut open into the filters today, I have here my oil filter cutter. Now with my 9 oil change locations, it is important for me to always check my products as I pull them off for quality control and for product testing. Right here I have an oil filter cutter from Longacre Racing. You can get it from Amazon. I'll have the link in the description. The first filter we're going to go over today is this Motorcraft filter. I've already got it cut open. The other two filters haven't been cut open, so we're just going to start with the Motorcraft. Most people associate Motorcraft with Ford. It is a Ford brand, but what most people don't know is that Motorcraft is came after Ford had already had a brand in place to be their OEM brand, and that is Autolite. And when we think of Autolite, we usually think of the spark plugs. But for the last almost 40 years, Motorcraft has been the brand that Ford has gone with. Now, for a long time, Ford did manufacture their own Motorcraft products, but recently they have been outsourcing to third parties using the OEM spec, OEM standing for Original Equipment Manufacturer, using their spec, and they've been dishing out Motorcraft filters to third parties to be created. Now, these Motorcraft are still, I believe, made in the USA. The filters are required to have their origin of where they were manufactured, and they are made in the USA. Sometimes they'll go as far as to say where in the USA they were made, but this just says USA and nothing further. Now, I already cut into this filter. The first thing I want to take note is the gasket is still on it. It has 7 drain back valves, or drain back holes in the base plate. The base plate is usually made of a steel material, and they vary with how many openings they have in the base plate. This particular one has 7. They are oval shaped. Next we have the silicone anti-drain back valve. It's in good shape. I did forget to mention this FL910S Motorcraft filter came off a 2006 Ford Escape from our Harrisburg location. I did not get the sticker off the car, so I don't know how many miles was pulled off it, which is something that we are going to do in the future. So the anti-drain back valve is in great shape. The end cap on this filter is actually securely fastened to the filter. That is not always the case. Sometimes when we cut these open, this end cap will come off. Now, the part of the filter that most people think of when they think of the filter is called the media. And this is a pleated paper-based media. It's not a synthetic based. It's not a synthetic type of carbon material. It's definitely a paper-based filtration system. The center tube is inside here, and because the base plate, the end caps are secured to the filter, the media, I'm unable to get to the center, but it is a steel-based center. I can't see how many openings it has in the center, but it is in there to secure the filter from being compressed. The steel coil spring is also inside, and the bypass valve is also inside. The housing of the actual filter has pleats on the end of it to make it easier for the end user to either put it on or take it off. Not all filters will have that. It has the ribs that, and Ford, I believe, also makes an oil filter wrench that has the matching ribs to fit directly onto this filter to take it off. Now, as far as the actual filter is concerned, this filter is in really good shape. The media is not compromised at all. It's not wavy. It looks like it could continue to clean filter at a clean oil at a very good rate. I'm sure that the driver was not pushing it to the maximum and was driving like a regular person. So most of the time these filters are good for up to 5,000 miles, especially if it's paper based. Now at our stores we usually go with the basic 3,000 miles with the regular oil, and we don't really move up until they start upgrading the oil to match, and then we'll talk to them about going past that 5,000 mile mark. Now, this particular filter is in fantastic shape. Obviously, it's the OEM spec because this is the Motorcraft filter, which is what we associate with Ford. So they're not going to let something roll off the lot with a inferior product. Motorcraft was started in the 70s. It replaced the Autolite branding in Ford, and it's what they've been using ever since for their internal components, from spark plugs to air filters to even they even make Motorcraft motor oil. But the filters that they make, or outsource rather, to third parties, they're good filters. You can buy these on Amazon. They do sell them at retail stores. This is not an economy filter. This is not a specialty filter. It's not a commercial filter. It's something you can get at the store. Advanced Auto Parts, AutoZone, Amazon, eBay, etc., etc. So that's it for the Motorcraft filter. We're going to move on to the PZ27 Pennzoil filter. Next we have the PZ27 Pennzoil Filter. This is the filter from Sopus Brands. We'll talk a little bit about the history of Pennzoil because there's a lot of confusion around Pennzoil as a brand, and then we'll get into the filter a little bit. Pennzoil actually is a Los Angeles-based company, ironically, and this will be a reoccurring theme throughout the filter videos, but Pennzoil came about from the breakup of Standard Oil. If you don't know about the history of Standard Oil, there's a great documentary on YouTube called The Men Who Built America. Fantastic video. Talks about Rockefeller and Standard Oil and how all the different oil companies came to be. Now, Pennzoil was bought out in 1913, I believe it was, and it was renamed the Penn Oil Company and their headquarters was in Oil City, Pennsylvania. Through a few more mergers, it had morphed into an oil company that was based out of Los Angeles, and then it kind of grew into its own. It did really good branding. It had a leveraged buyout of a company that was larger than it in the 70s that really kind of took it to the next level. And then it created a relationship with Jiffy Lube that kind of solidified its place in the motor oil lubricants world. Now in 2008, Sopus, which is the Shell Oil Products of the United States, purchased Pennzoil and Quaker State, and now Pennzoil is under the Shell branding holding company. Now this particular filter was made in the US, and I want to take note of a few different things. It has the same pleating that the Motorcraft filter had, and it has the same stamp on it that says made in the USA. Now in my Oil Filter 101 video, the anatomy of an oil filter, I talked about how brands can be different, but the manufacturers can be the same. Now I think we're going to see, and I did not know this going into cutting this filter, I just cut it, but we're going to see that this filter was manufactured by the same manufacturing plant as the Motorcraft filter. This is not uncommon. Either both Shell and Ford use this manufacturing plant, or one of them owns the manufacturing plant and the other used it. We'll start with the base plate. The base plate is still in good shape. It's the gasket is still on it. It's got the same 7 drain back openings. These openings are in the same oval shape as the Motorcraft filter. This steel base plate is in good condition. It's a really tough base plate compared to some of the other base plates that I have open. Actually, and before I get too much further, this came off a 2009 Dodge Grand Caravan. The silicone anti-drain back valve is in good shape. Another thing that leads me to believe these were made by the same manufacturer is the Motorcraft drain back valve and this drain back valve are identical. They're just different colors. And usually that comes from the equipment just spitting out the material with different coloring. Now, one obvious difference between the two of them is the spring coil in this filter, which goes into the bottom of the filter housing, is external, whereas on the Motorcraft it was internal. So the drain back valve is more visible in this one, and the center tube in this one is also more visible. Now this filter is pretty worn out. It's getting a little wavy. Towards the seam of the filter, it's starting to spread out a little bit and get a little bit wavy, as opposed to that Motorcraft filter. That doesn't mean to say that the quality is any different. It just means to say this Dodge Grand Caravan may have driven this filter a little bit harder, a little bit longer than the Motorcraft filter. By all accounts, I believe this filter is actually the same exact filter as the Motorcraft filter. And these stamped end caps kind of make me really believe that to be the case, because not many filters have the end caps mounted directly to the media. This is a paper-based media. I feel like I'm repeating myself with the Motorcraft because these are I really feel they're the same filter. So if anyone ever tells you, if you're a Ford guy and they say, oh, only stick with Motorcraft, you have a little bit of extra knowledge, say, well, this Pennzoil filter is actually the same exact filter as the Motorcraft. It's a good filter. It's these are tough to find online. These PZ filters are sold by distributors, usually Shell distributors, and they're usually not priced fantastic. For someone like me who has the multiple quick lube locations, it might be something you want to carry a couple of cases of in the store in case you have a brand conscious customer. But for the most part, these are not any kind of money maker for Shell. These are just something that they have because it's just part of the history of the company to have a line of oil filters. But that's it for the PZ21. Came off a 2009 Dodge Grand Caravan, and this one actually has it doesn't have a cross reference on it, so you would have to use a cross reference guide. You can use servicechampfilters.com is the website that I use. That's servicechampfilters.com, and you can use it to cross reference with other parts. But that is it for the Pennzoil PZ21. Because this Mobile 1 filter is brand new, hasn't been on a car, I'm going to go ahead and just cut it open on video and we can take a look inside it. Let's take a look. Alright, so the first thing we're going to look at is the base plate. Obviously the gasket's going to be on it. It's a brand new base plate. Now, as opposed to the Motorcraft and the Pennzoil PZ21, this only has 6 return openings on the bottom. This gasket is definitely heavier than the other. This is a very high-end filter. These will cost anywhere from $15 to $25 depending on where you get them from. They're meant to be combined with the full synthetic oil. So this base plate is very good quality. This gasket is much thicker than the other gaskets. This is a really thick gasket compared to, pull off the Motorcraft gasket, or maybe I won't. It does not want to come off. That's a good sign for the filter that the gasket does not want to come off even after being used as much as it was used. Alright, so I got the gasket off. It was definitely on there real good. Take a look at those two gaskets with the Mobile 1 gasket and the Motorcraft gasket. Next we have the Silicone anti-drain bag valve. It has some kind of pleating on it. I'm not sure what that pleating is for, but this is a very high quality drain bag valve. I'm unsure of the material, some kind of silicone. This is the same color silicone as the Motorcraft one, but different from the PZ21. I don't know if that's because the material is a little bit different or if it's just a matter of the coloring. We'll go into the filter. Now, this filter does have the end caps secured to the filter. If I were to count these pleats, I'm going to go out on a limb and say there are more pleats on this filter than the Motorcraft and the Pennzoil PZ21. This is a synthetic media. These are meant to hold up to 15 grams of contaminants. All right, so as opposed to some of the other filters that we will review eventually, 15 grams is a lot more than some of the 5, 6, 7 gram filters. Now, the center housing on this is difficult to see, but it does have an has an end cap with a bypass valve on it, and the bypass valve is built right into the center tubing. The steel coil spring is separate from the rest of the filter. It's in the housing, the oil filter housing, which is a steel filter housing. This Mobile 1 has the pleats on the end, just like the Motorcraft and the PZ21, to make it for easy removal or easy application. Now, this has instructions built into the label on how to remove the filter, but it doesn't have a cross-reference. Mobil 1 doesn't really have a good numbering system as some of the other filters do. A lot of the other filters like the Shell, Pennzoil, Quaker State, Valvoline, some of those numbers cross, so you don't, the only difference is the first letter and number. So for Mobil 1, their line of filters is M1, which stands for Mobil 1, and then the actual filter number 102. This doesn't cross with any other filters, so you would need to use an application guide to figure out what the applicable filter is. Now, Mobil 1 always meets OEM spec. The Mobil 1 filters are always going to meet the OEM spec, which just stands for Original Equipment Manufacturer. These filters are designed to be good up to 15,000 miles worth of filtration. Now, I don't do that myself. I know people that do, but I don't do it myself. This is something that is new. Mobil 1's putting a lot of money into a media campaign around it. There's some people that swear by Mobil 1, but Mobil 1 as a company, again, another company that spawned from the Standard Oil breakup in the early 20th century, kind of became its own through mergers, and now is really focusing on the retail market for lubricants. They're shutting down a lot of their gas stations. None of the Mobil 1s are owned by are corporately owned anymore. They're all franchisees or licensees. Mobil 1's kind of getting out of the gas game. They'll still distribute the gas, but they don't want to own the actual gas stations. As far as the quick lube industry is concerned, you really don't see Mobil 1 express lubes very often. A lot of them are shut down. A lot of the stores that I go to, a lot of vacant quick lubes I look at are former Mobil 1 express lubes. And it's an expensive brand. It is an expensive brand, and I'll put the links to each of these filters in the description, but the Mobil 1 brand, they pour a lot of money into marketing, and as a result of that, their products are a little more expensive. As far as quality goes, I don't really see them head and shoulders above the competition in terms of the quality of their lubricants products. But this is Filter Friday, so I really am not trying to get into the lubricant side of it. I'd rather just stick to the filters. This is a very high quality filter. It's definitely one that I would put on my cars if I had unlimited money to spend on these filters whenever I change my oil. So for now, that's going to be it. And this is the last filter of the 3. So I'm going to do something real fun and wrap up this video for you guys. Thanks. Alright guys, every single Filter Friday video I want to give a chance to give away one of my Costa Oil 10-minute oil change plush cars. I give these away at my grand openings when I open up new locations. All it is a stuffed car. The kids seem to love them. They make a great pillow. Seen a lot of people use it for a headrest, for using on their iPad. All I need you to do, the PZ27 came off a 2009 Dodge Grand Caravan. Whoever in the comment section below guesses the closest amount to the miles that was on it, I have the miles written down. I will announce who the winner is on every Filter Friday. So we didn't have one last week. This is the first episode since the first episode, and so this will be something new that we'll be doing going forward. If you like these videos, please subscribe. Please hit that bell. I'm going to be doing other videos on the motor oil side of things as well. And then I'm also just going to talk a little bit about business in between as well. So thanks guys. Have a great weekend. If you guys like the videos that I'm putting out on entrepreneurship, my oil change business, or any of the videos I'm putting out, feel free to subscribe and make sure you hit that bell.